Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. Today, the nation pauses to remember the lives lost, the people who served our country with the ultimate sacrifice. Across the country, Americans are holding events for Memorial Day. We saw commemorations in Washington, D.C. and also New York City. Earlier, President Trump visited Arlington National Cemetery to lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. This is a sacred occasion marked by presidents every single year. President Trump then delivered a message to America's heroes.
Today, we are reminded that there could be no 4th of July without America's armed forces, and there could be no Independence Day without Memorial Day. We owe our liberty, our self-government, the glories of our history, and our very nation itself to the generations who paid for it with everything they had, the ultimate sacrifice.
Of course, a solemn day here in the United States. And as President Trump honors America's armed forces, behind the scenes, there are new developments on the war against Iran. Both Iran and the United States signal they are close to an agreement. However, earlier today, President Trump posted this on Truth Social, quote, "Negotiations with the Islamic Republic of Iran are proceeding nicely. It will only be a great deal for all or no deal at all." And as we wait for news on Iran, White House correspondent Mike Carter is following the president today. Mike, a solemn day, but a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, good to be with you, Katrina. President Trump speaking to the very human cost of the ongoing war with Iran today at his visit to Arlington National Cemetery. The president also issuing a degree of hope about this ongoing framework that the U.S. has with Iran. And now we don't know the details of it or the future of Iran's nuclear program, but there is reason to be hopeful. As you mentioned, the president earlier this afternoon laying a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery at the tomb of the unknown soldier. This Memorial Day, of course, being the first Memorial Day since the deaths of those 13 American service members during Operation Epic Fury.
In Operation Epic Fury, we lost 13 wonderful souls, wonderful, special people. These incredible men and women gave their lives to ensure that the world's #1 state sponsor of terror will never have a nuclear weapon. Oh, and they won't. They will never have a nuclear weapon. I'm sure you know that.
President Trump says any deal struck with Iran will be the exact opposite of the JCPOA disaster negotiated by the failed Obama administration. Still, President Trump says that the U.S.'s relationship with Iran has become a much more professional and productive one. On Saturday, during a phone call with Middle East leaders, Trump telling them after the war ends, he expects all who are still not part of the Abraham Accords or don't have a peace agreement with Israel to join and normalize relations with the Jewish state. Those countries include Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, and Bahrain. Now, notably, UAE and Bahrain already members of the Abraham Accords. Trump says, though, "I am mandatorily requesting that all countries immediately sign the Abraham Accords, and that if Iran signs an agreement with me, the President of the United States of America, it would be an honor to also have them be a part of this unparalleled world coalition." Meanwhile, Senator Lindsey Graham today saying President Trump's most recent proposal requiring an expansion of the Abraham Accords as part of a negotiated settlement to the Iran conflict is simply brilliant and would result in the most significant change in the Middle East in thousands of years. Iran's president today also ordering the reestablishment of the country's international internet for Iranian citizens. So maybe that could be linked in there. Still, Iran's foreign ministry today saying that, well, it comes to this framework idea that is still being negotiated. Don't think that anything is imminent. We are still in the framework phase, though any deal could be struck at any time. So we have our eyes on the White House. Send it back to you, Katrina.
All right, Mike Carter, we appreciate that report. Retired Air Force Brigadier General and former U.S. Deputy Military Representative to NATO, Blaine Holt, joins me, along with former F-15E fighter pilot and F-16 Thunderbird pilot Ryden Bodenheimer from the Max Afterburner YouTube channel. Gentlemen, thank you both for your service to the country on this Memorial Day and also for joining me today on The Record. All right, General Holt, I want to start with you here. I feel like this is a little bit of a Groundhog Day discussion and scenario, and I feel like I keep asking the same questions. The question really is, and I think on everyone's mind, is the ceasefire really going to happen this time? And if so, do you think that Iran will actually agree to not pursue a nuclear weapon? And also, do you think we're going to be able to retrieve all of that uranium stockpile that President Trump said is a must do?
Yeah, it just seems like a whole lot of stuff, doesn't it?
Sure
I
does.
feel strongly about it both ways, and I'll tell you why that is. I don't believe for a second we're going to leave this regime in place just the way it is, and I don't believe we'll ever let them keep that material or have nuclear weapons. So then how do we square the circle? The way it's going to happen is there's going to be a revolution. And I'm not quite sure that the Iranians are talking for the ones that are talking to our president. The case in point is, first off, this morning's oil futures opened up at $90 a barrel, actually as low as 89 overnight. So we've stabilized the oil market. The second thing is we're now bringing back up the Abraham Accords. I see a merger of strategies coming together that disaffects the Iranian regime. It also disaffects Lloyd's of London and the City of London financialists. And so here we go. I am looking for strategy to prevail here.
Ryan, it's interesting. I want to bring up or continue what General Holt said there. A question that I've asked both of you many times before is, what about the regime that is currently in place? What about an uprising of Iranian citizens? Obviously, any talks would be quiet. They would be behind the scenes. But do you feel that there is something happening there that would lead to the ousting of this, I will say, secondary extreme regime that is now in place?
Yeah, hey, Katrina and General Holt, great to be with you all on this sacred day. The thing that really stands out to me is it looks to me like President Trump is basically pushing aside the Ayatollah with these latest comments. I mean, if we look at who he's actually talking to, it doesn't seem to be the Ayatollah or the Mullah class, because them joining the Abraham Accords, I mean, let's be honest, I don't see any chance of that actually happening. So who's actually being negotiated with? I'm not saying they're not hardliners. IRGC members, maybe from the Artesh as well, some of the normal army from Iran. The Artesh is the normal army, IRGC are the extreme hardliners. So who's actually being negotiated with? It doesn't look like the Ayatollah to me. And we can just totally see over these last few months, the Ayatollah class has been put on notice. There's really no place for them in the international community. And this is a big statement from President Trump with this latest truth post.
Yeah, and we're hearing that Khamenei has been in hiding, and that communication even between the top people in the regime is nearly impossible. And we can certainly see that in how all of these so-called ceasefire negotiations may or may not be happening. General Holt, I do want to ask you about the terror proxies around the world. Obviously, Iran finances them, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon. And according to the Jerusalem Post, Iranian foreign minister says Iran will not abandon Hezbollah. And just today, the IDF said it intercepted a Hezbollah rocket, but 2 drones crashed in northern Israel. Obviously, we know these terror proxies are incredibly dangerous, and a deal breaker, essentially, to Israel. So how do you see this part of, I'll say, this problem playing out, General?
Such an important facet, Katrina. How are they paying them? How are they making payroll when Scott Bessent has shut down 7 of the money laundering banks that are in that City of London consortium? So when they're orphaned, you tend not to take up the cause so much because you actually have no resources. So that's probably a large measure of how that's going to come about. But it's something we should take very seriously here at home and around the world, because you can see a desperate enemy in its final gasps doing that. Now, some encouraging things. The Iranian regime today opened back up its internet. Why did they do that? Well, they opened up the internet because they're not even getting their own propaganda out to the masses in Iran so that they can try to give them, some sort of semblance that we're very much still in charge. We're negotiating with the United States, so don't get any ideas. Well, they're getting ideas. And behind the scenes, and I remember this from my days in the start of the Afghanistan war, we've got these things called airlifters, C-17s. They're quite useful, especially when you're dropping supplies to a very determined force that wants their country back. And I think that's how this closing act goes. I just would stress how important Karg Island is in the oil fields right now.
You know, Ryan, I do want to ask you, we have about 50,000 U.S. troops remaining stationed in the Middle East. And of course, it has been about 3 months since the U.S. began Operation Epic Fury against Iran. We've heard from the president we have already won the war. We are simply there. We remain there simply just to remind Iran that they don't want to make any false moves. What is your assessment of America's military during this time?
Yeah, that's a great point, Katrina, because I think what we're seeing play out right now is what I'm calling the modern art of war. Some people have said that they're frustrated that more isn't being done in Iran. What I'm seeing play out is strategy at its finest, because we didn't see the same blunders of Iraq and Afghanistan. We've seen strikes happen, very targeted strikes, to bring Iran closer and closer to an uprising, to a negotiation, basically getting what we want while not having a massive ground invasion. But we've got the forces right there that can come in and put Iran on notice again. And this strategy is actually called retrenchment, where you go in, you cut the head off the snake, and then you step back and say, okay, hey, you guys want to negotiate now? No? Okay, no problem. We got 50,000 troops there, and we'll see if you want to negotiate here in a couple months. So this is actually the modern art of war that we're seeing play out right here. And I'm just proud of every service member that's there right now, especially today on Memorial Day. So lots of great things happening.
Absolutely. Again, and of course, negotiations going on. President Trump assessing could be 95% done. We will be watching, as I know you both will be. Brigadier General Blaine Holt, Ryan Bodenheimer, thank you for your service, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks. Great seeing you guys.
All right. Coming up, an historic apology from the Catholic Church. What did Pope Leo apologize for? We're going to get to that when the record continues.
You're dangerous.
A very interesting place to be right now. It's been 35 days, as you can see on the counter here behind me, since Nicolas Maduro, the leader of this country, was taken by Delta forces.
Because you're honest.
You don't get political. I don't think actors should. Well, thank you.
So break the glass.
And I guess this didn't sit too well with one of the Schmidt heads on Newsmax.
What the FCC is supposed to regulate, ABC breaks that law every single night. That is not a comedy show. That is propaganda.
Watch Rob Schmidt, weeknights.
Immuno 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
The sale is on at urgentcarekit.com/America.
Immuno 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Welcome back to The Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. Today, an historic apology from the Catholic Church. Pope Leo apologized for the Vatican's role in slavery. The Pope wrote, quote, "It is impossible not to feel deep sorrow in contemplating the immense suffering and humiliation endured by so many, in stark contrast to their immeasurable dignity as persons infinitely loved by the Lord. For this, in the name of the Church, I sincerely ask for pardon," end quote. Now, in 1452, Pope Nicholas V issued a decree allowing the Portuguese king to conquer Africa and the Americans and enslave non-Christians. The permission to the Portuguese was renewed by popes for decades. Senior Vatican correspondent for the National Catholic Register, Ed Pentin, joins me now. Ed, thanks so much for joining us here. How significant is this apology, particularly in 2026?
Well, it's significant in it's the first time that a pope has actually apologized for what previous popes have said and done regarding slavery. Previous popes have apologized for Christians in general, but this is the first time it's been specific about popes. So it is interesting and it is significant in that regard. Whether what impact it might have or whether it's particularly wise is, of course, another question altogether.
We know today's apology from the Pope came in his first encyclical, and that was called Magnifica Humanitas, or Magnificent Humanity. Now, Pope Leo brought up the slavery issue because he compared it to what he says is unregulated labor practices in making AI chips. A big difference there. Let's watch.
Artificial intelligence already touches many areas of our lives and affects decisions that shape human coexistence. It is also dramatically changing how war is waged. Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed. The word is strong, I know, but deliberately chosen because this moment needs words capable of attracting attention, awakening consciences, and indicating paths forward for humanity.
Now, the Pope did go on to clarify that he doesn't mean that AI should be completely ignored or completely disregarded, but he did go on to compare AI to the Tower of Babel. Now, what does this mean for the church to comment on AI?
Right. Well, it is interesting because that contrast with the Tower of Babel is really to explain and to underline the fact that the Pope is very concerned that AI is being developed without God, without reference to God. It's being developed like the Tower of Babel through sort of technocratic pride, as he put it, and uniformity, rather than, as I say, reference to God and building it with him. So what he's trying to do here with this document really is to inject Christ into the center of AI so that it becomes more ethical and at the service of man. And as you heard, he talks about disarming it from the logics that make it an instrument of domination, exclusion, and death. So he's really trying to humanize AI, to bring Christian humanism into it, because many people really don't know what it's about or where it's going. Even the presenter at today's presentation said, he's developed this, but he doesn't know quite how it's going to develop beyond or into the future, because it's so much unknown about it. So the Pope is really trying to give it some ethical guidelines, some guardrails, if you like, so that it becomes a help to those, especially those who are vulnerable or weak, and really help towards promoting the common good. And so that it's not for profit or power, that kind of thing.
I think it's a great point, Ed. I mean, obviously, AI brings more questions than answers at this point. And so lots of discussion about how to put in those guardrails, so to speak, but especially the moral guardrails from the Catholic Church. And we will be watching that. Obviously, the Pope will be very involved, as we heard from his speech and his words today. Ed Pentin, thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, a mayoral candidate in California launches a brand new campaign ad many are calling brilliant and iconic. We're going to have the details when the record continues. Stay there.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched to Newsmax.
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 Have you made the switch?
You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric that helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Nobody wants to put a new roof over their head. It's too expensive. And if they can extend the life of that roof and get 5 more years or 10 more years, it's a no-brainer.
What RoofMax does is it helps people in that they don't have to spend that $15,000, $20,000 on a new roof. They can spend pennies on the dollar.
The RoofMax product was a small percentage of cost of replacing a roof.
Get your roof treated now, but pay later, with no payments for a full year.
Oh no, is this the episode with the breakup?
Reba, we can't agree on the house.
Y'all need Realtor.com. With over 500,000 new listings every month, you could find the one today. This could be it. Better put a key ring on it. Realtor.com.
Before Apoquel Chewable for allergic itch, giving dogs pills was a battle of wits.
Oh, Maria, I'm wise to your foolish game.
Is it gone?
Totally gone.
Relief for itchy dogs can be easier. Apoquel, the trusted #1 treatment for allergic itch, is available in a tasty chewable that works fast.
May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations, serious infections, or pre-existing cancers. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs under 12 months of age with serious infections or in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs.
Ask your vet for Apoquel chewable.
Do it!
This is a story about the one. The one who looks to Grainger to make sparks fly. Getting it done right is a craft. It takes experience, the right material, and the right partner like Grainger with a wide range of professional-grade products. For the one, working hard means others can play even harder. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I wish I wasn't afraid to smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish I knew who to trust.
I'm not looking for another quick fix.
I want a smile I know will last.
Clear Choice smiles are made to stand the test of time. They're built by dental implant experts, backed by 20 years of pioneering research and a lifetime warranty on premium arches. Our smiles are built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
All the plants your yard needs, without the hassle. That's what FastGrowingTrees.com delivers. And every tree comes with our Alive and Thrive guarantee. Get the plants you want and the results you'll love. Save now at FastGrowingTrees.com.
You're told to optimize, to hack. There's always a promise of a better you. But what if you were never meant to be fixed? Your biology knows how to thrive. It just needs a reminder. Armor Colostrum reawakens that brilliance. 400 nutrients, 4 seconds, 1 daily revival. This time, remember what you're made of.
Los Angeles mayoral candidate Spencer Pratt has a new type of campaign ad. Now, this time, Pratt's team is power washing stencils onto LA sidewalks. The message, imagine if the streets were this clean. Spencer Pratt for mayor of LA. Many have called this ad brilliant and iconic since the only way to remove the ad is by actually cleaning the streets. Pratt says LA residents do not need to accept the filth and decline. Meanwhile, Pratt has seen a spike in campaign donations. His campaign raised nearly 10 times more than Mayor Karen Bass's did, according to the last campaign finance report. Pratt brought in $2.72 million between April 19th and May 16th. Bass raised $283,000. Political consultants say Pratt could potentially make it to the November runoff with these numbers. But not surprisingly, not everyone is happy with Pratt. American comedian and game show host Drew Carey blasted Pratt in a social media post. Carey wrote in part, quote, "At least get behind someone competent and not some serial scammer without a soul or moral compass." Pratt has not commented on Carey's post. Tomorrow, voters in Texas will head to the polls in the state's primary runoff election. Voters will nominate a Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate, where U.S. Senator John Cornyn is going head-to-head with State Attorney General Ken Paxton. President Trump endorsed Paxton last week, saying the country needs, quote, loyalty to the cause of greatness. It is the president's latest effort to oust candidates he views as disloyal. Cornyn responded to the backing of his opponent, saying he has worked with President Trump 99% of the time. He also went on to call Paxton weak. And in an interview yesterday, Cornyn said people are seeking division within the Republican Party as they go through a robust family fight. Now, the winner in tomorrow's race will face Democratic State Congressman James Tallarico in the general election. Senior national security and legal analyst for the Daily Signal, Mehek Cooke, and Democratic strategist and former Obama official Ashwani Jain join me now. Welcome to both of you. All right, Mehek, what message does this race send to other Republican incumbents across the country? How does it is it perceived as Democratic or rather Republican infighting, or is this just politics as usual?
No, this is massive, Katrina. I think that everybody thinks this is about a Trump loyalty test. This is about a voter loyalty test. We had a mandate to shut down the border, to ensure that judges were going to be appointed, and to make sure that President Trump's agenda was actually going to have a follow through. And we're tired of mostly Republican and good enough. Voters are done actually electing Republicans who campaign like warriors and then act like hall monitors. We want to end the filibuster. We want to make sure that there is change and we can effectuate it through laws. President Trump did his job through executive orders. So this race is actually going to show when you sit in Congress or even the Senate today for several terms. Incumbency does not mean you get to have a lifetime appointment there. And unfortunately for Cornyn, he turned against President Trump. He wasn't for the filibuster and many Americans until push came to shove. So the fact that his race is on the line tells every Republican, don't get too comfortable this midterm because voters are watching.
Yeah, a question for you, Ashwani. I mean, Republicans are saying that it's not a problem that Paxton has had numerous legal battles. He certainly has. Critics of his, even in the party, say he has too much scandal. I actually spoke to the Attorney General last week, and he said, listen, a lot of those things were targeted attacks on him. So we're hearing all different feedback here. What do you think as a Democrat?
Well, it's a primary, right? So these things are going to come out. And to be clear, I don't support, Paxton or Cornyn. But I think this Texas runoff and that the fact the president is attacking Republican leaders like Cornyn, I think it does show the Republican Party is no longer about conservative principles. It's more about loyalty to Trump personally. And you even saw that with Massey, someone who voted with his party 90% of the time, but lost simply because he called out Trump's connection to Epstein or his war with Iran. Those are issues that a majority of voters, even within the MAGA base, oppose the president on specifically. And this Trump strategy may work in red state primaries, but I think it's going to be a problem for Republicans this November during the midterms.
Yeah, Mehek, let's continue Ashwani's logic there. I mean, also politics in general should be about bringing people, in theory, should be about bringing people even within the same party together who may have different ideas or better ideas. And, President Trump has said, even with members of his cabinet, as we've seen, even if it's RFK Jr., that he wants people who have different ideas to make America great again, using his platform there. So do you think it might be short-sighted for him to support people who might have different ideas?
There's a lot of people in the Republican Party that have different ideas, and we're still watching President Trump work with people. The problem with Massey, I know Democrats love to say Epstein. Every Republican wanted to release that, including President Trump. Biden had 4 years. Massey continued to be a thorn in the American people's side because not only was he not for Iran, but he voted against one of the greatest domestic policies, which was the big, beautiful bill. So I think what President Trump is really doing is making sure we have Republican fighters that he's endorsing that are going to get things done. And again, it's about the filibuster, Katrina. We were promised a closed border. The fact that Border Patrol, TPS, all these agencies and Border Patrol aren't actually getting funded, that's the bigger issue today. And we're allowing Democrats to act like they're in control when it's a Republican control majority. So we have to start acting like it.
Yeah, and also with Massey, I mean, he was very clear that he was not going to vote for anything that actually increased spending. He's more of a libertarian in that sense, and so his heels were just dug in on that. But I do want to ask you, Ashwani, about Tallarico. Tallarico is a bit of a live wire. Of course, we've seen a lot of viral kind of odd moments circulated with him. And just because you're a Democrat, I'm not going to make an assumption that you support him. But do you feel that he could beat either Paxton or Cornyn?
I think so. And yes, I am a little biased. But if you look at the facts, the fact that so many Democrats came out to vote for him in the Democratic primary, the fact that he's doing very well and has that base mobilized, I think makes a difference. And again, it also comes in context to the current state of the Republican Party and the president. On each of the promises that the president campaigned on, voters are seeing the opposite, which is why his disapproval is above 60%. Again, that's across party lines. And it's not just liberals saying that. Even huge MAGA influencers, former MAGA folks, his own former cabinet members have raised concerns. And I think at some point that stops being partisan criticism and starts becoming a pattern. Voters see that. And again, that's why his numbers are failing.
Yeah, Mehek, obviously a lot of people not happy about the Iran war. A lot of people still frustrated with the economy as Americans are traveling this weekend or maybe coming home after a weekend away, not happy about the price at the pump. So as we get closer to the midterms, even though we see that President Trump is definitely gaining ground in terms of the people he generally is throwing his support behind winning, we're still seeing that happen. Do you think that there are maybe some problems going into the midterms just based on the broader realities?
100%, Katrina. And affordability was a crisis before President Trump came into office. We had to grapple with 4 years of the highest inflation under Joe Biden, and President Trump was able to drop gas prices. While the Biden administration continued to say this was transitory, we knew it wasn't. And look, I think the Iran war will be wrapped up. There are Gulf states that are actually excited to not only extend and expand the Abraham Accords, but to come up with an agreement so that they're not being held hostage by this Iranian terrorist regime. And the same thing for the United States. We cannot continue another 47-year war. So President Trump knows that going into the midterms. He's laser focused on getting a deal, and you're going to see oil prices. Gas prices were actually down in the state of Ohio this weekend. We're going to continue to see that President Trump can deliver on affordability. But like most Republicans, nobody wants a war, but we also don't want to be held hostage by a country like Iran and wonder what's next. And nuclear weapons, and a country that had so much capability to not only obliterate the Gulf states, but also the United States, it was just a non-negotiable. And President Trump always said that.
I think that's a fair point. Ashwani, we're almost out of time here, but talking about the midterms, obviously, the Democrats having kind of an internal struggle. And whenever I ask Democrats or Democratic strategists about that, they say, oh, we have a very big tent. We welcome everybody and all different ideas. I get that. But at the same time, when those ideas seem to be so increasingly disparate and potentially at odds, when you see people like Plattner or otherwise, how do you think that's going to work out for Democrats? Do you guys need to get together on your messaging?
Well, I think, some of the most popular politicians in America, again, across party lines, if you look at the popularity, are people like a Bernie Sanders, Mamdani, and an AOC. And if you look at most polling from Reuters to Gallup, majority of voters, even in red and purple states, support progressive policies, specifically like Medicare for all, living wages, and global human rights. And so I think the party, the establishment, need to embrace that change, embrace the progressive base, which are majority of voters, and that's actually how we're going to continue winning these elections. And again, holding the president accountable, because he is still at the top of the ticket, he is still the leader of our country, and we need to make sure that anyone who holds that position is held accountable to the laws of this country, to our Constitution, and to the voters themselves.
Very interesting, because the names you mentioned there, Ashwani, those to me are way more socialist than Democrats. So that'll be interesting to see how that party evolves. All right, Mehek Cooke, Ashwani Jain, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, a massive evacuation is underway due to the threat of a toxic chemical spill. Where is this happening and what's going on? We'll tell you more when the record continues. Stay there.
Hi, I'm Bianca Della Garza. What I love about working with Newsmax is the relationship we have with our viewers. So smart, so informed, it allows us to deliver powerful analysis, the sharpest viewpoints on the issues that really matter.
You didn't just buy your land, you earned it. And for more than 30 years in this country, Mahindra tractors have earned something too. The trust of landowners who know what real toughness looks like. With powerful engines that work harder, heavy steel builds that last longer, and intuitive controls that are easier to use. Mahindras are made for the folks who earned them. Mahindra, outworking the field. Get 0% for 84 months and $2,000 cash back on the 1100 and 2100 series.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
The sale is on at urgentcarekit.com/America.
What if you could have shades like these for a fraction of big brand prices? With Shady Rays, you can. We're an independent company, so we do things differently. We offer high-quality polarized shades for a reasonable price. And we personally replace shades that get lost or broken. So far, we've racked up over 300,000 five-star reviews. I founded Shady Rays so that we could have sunglasses that stand up to whatever life throws at us. Order now and get 20% off site-wide at shadyrays.com.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Planning that perfect family vacation? Dreaming of that exotic retreat? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools are ultra durable for any climate. Can be installed in weeks, not months. And have hundreds of designs, sizes, and colors to choose from. For 70 years, Latham Pool has remained the gold standard in bringing backyard dreams to life. Our pools are easy to care for, won't stain or crack, and never require costly resurfacing. Customize your personal oasis with exotic watercolors, spas, tanning ledges, and exquisite water features. And with flexible financing options, your dream is within reach. Summer installation is still possible. Don't let another year of memories slip away. Visit lathampool.com and get started today.
A touching tribute to a NASCAR legend. Yesterday, NASCAR honored racing legend Kyle Busch. His wife and 2 kids attended the Coca-Cola 600 in North Carolina. The sellout crowd of about 95,000 fans all paid tribute to Busch. On Thursday, the racing world was left in shock when Busch was pronounced dead. His family says he died after a severe pneumonia outbreak that progressed into sepsis. After the race last night, the winner, Daniel Suarez, was overcome with emotion when speaking about Busch.
It's been a very tough week. You know, Kyle, he was a special man. This one is for Kyle, for Samantha, for Braxton, for Lennox, for all his family. Definitely this one has a special flavor because of Kyle. This one is for him.
Kyle Busch was 41 years old. He was one of the most successful drivers in NASCAR history. And today, officials in California confirmed the risk of an explosion at a Southern California aerospace facility has now been eliminated. Orange County firefighters found a crack inside a chemical tank on Saturday following overheating reports. Crew members worked all night to stabilize the temperature of a toxic chemical held inside the tank. On Saturday, California Governor Gavin Newsom issued a state of emergency. Tens of thousands had to be evacuated. Our national correspondent, Joe Moeller, joins us live from Fountain Valley, California, with the very latest. Joe, what can you tell us?
Well, Orange County fire officials conducted an operation last night on that chemical storage tank, and they say the risk of a massive explosion connected to this is now off the table as the pressure has been released and the temperature is coming down, but there's still a threat to public safety here, so these evacuation orders remain in place. Tens of thousands of people are out of their home here at this hour still. Throughout the weekend, many have been out of their homes, but this is just one of several evacuation sites. This one's in Fountain Valley, but there are several around the area of Garden Grove where this facility is. This all started on Friday in Garden Grove. Officials say pressure built inside a chemical storage tank at GKN Aerospace containing methyl acrylate, a highly flammable industrial chemical. After the tank began overheating, crews reported bulging sides and a malfunctioning valve, raising fears of a possible rupture or massive explosion here. Crews have been spraying water around the clock to try and cool this tank down. Evacuations have impacted tens of thousands of people in parts of the city of Garden Grove, Anaheim, Cypress, Stanton, Buena Park, and Westminster. Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency and requested a federal emergency declaration, which we have learned from Orange County officials here. The president has signed off on that as of today. Last night, officials inspected that tank after a possible crack was believed to be releasing the pressure. They say they believe they have prevented a catastrophic explosion. Temperatures inside are coming down. They are still concerned about the tank rupturing. And we just talked to an OC county supervisor here, Janet Wynn, about what's going on.
And so that's a positive news that is now telling us that the temperature's going down. There's also a crack, which has eased the pressure within the tank. So the thought of it exploding and how big of that magnitude is definitely now has decreased in that possibility.
GKN Aerospace manufactures parts for commercial and military aircraft. The company reportedly issued an apology over the weekend as some lawmakers call for an investigation, and about half a dozen law firms reportedly prepare to take legal action. We talked to residents in this area a short time ago.
We are kind of lucky to be able to get a shelter, but other worst case scenario is so dangerous for everybody.
I think there should be a real investigation as to how this was handled, how that chemical's handled, what those regulations should be.
Again, this is one of several evacuation sites here in northwest Orange County. Tens of thousands remain from their home, and officials here are still urging people to follow these evacuation orders as they still try to assess whether people can return today or not, or see if that evacuation zone should be smaller. It's about a 4 square mile area, so it's a big area here in northwest Orange County, but they are expected to put out more updates in just a few hours here in Orange County. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Joe Moeller, we appreciate the update. Thank you. And coming up, why are more women being wounded and killed in combat? Dr. Deborah Birx, who served in the U.S. Army as a colonel, joins me next. That when the record continues. Stay there.
Welcome to Roland Garros.
No place makes you feel so right.
Carlos Alcaraz reigns in Roland Garros.
I love Paris.
Incredible.
Why, oh, why do I love Paris?
Oh, beautiful.
Because my love is near.
Coco has conquered the clay.
I love that Paris.
Homeowners ask me all the time, do gutter guards really work?
Leaf Filter certainly does. In our testing, Leaf Filter handled double the rain of common hood-style guards.
It's Homes approved.
Call 877-77-HOMES or visit leaffilter.com/homes.
Hello, this is WWE Hall of Fame wrestler Mick Foley. Across this great country, there are thousands of veterans with no place to call home. They deserve better.
Welcome to my new home.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation is committed to eradicating veteran homelessness by providing housing and critical services.
Couldn't ask for anything more.
Please help by donating $11 a month at T2T.org. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Let us do good.
Marlene trusts Prevagen for her brain, and this is her story.
Hi, I'm Marlene. Taking care of myself, it's also taking care of the family as well. I've been taking Prevagen for around 5 years now. It helps me maintain who I am and gives me more confidence. I'm taking Prevagen and telling my family and telling everyone around me, I know what it's going to do for them. Prevagen works for me, and I see the results.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
250 years ago, a nation was forged by grit, by courage, by freedom. Today, we raise a glass to that same spirit. 4547 Straight Bourbon Whiskey, the 250th Anniversary Edition. Bold, independent, unmistakably American. Toast to independence this year. Built by patriots, for patriots. Order yours today.
Millions of Americans rely on a statin to reduce cholesterol, but statins can deplete CoQ10 levels. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption and the #1 cardiologist recommended form. It helps replenish what statins deplete. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Healthy plants guaranteed to thrive, handpicked for you. That's what FastGrowingTrees.com delivers. From privacy and fruit trees to shrubs, flowering trees, houseplants, and more. Straight to your door. Fast Growing Trees has more plants than you'll find at a garden center. And every tree comes with our Alive and Thrive guarantee. Get the plants you want and the results you'll love at FastGrowingTrees.com. Save now on your best yard.
Welcome back to The Record. I'm Katrina Szish in for Greta Van Susteren. Well, today, Washington, D.C. held a parade, and it is the nation's largest Memorial Day event. The parade's route is along Constitution Avenue, starting from the National Archives to the White House. National security correspondent Carla Babb has more from Washington. Carla.
Yes, absolutely. And this was a time for people to reflect on those who have given everything. I'm here. The Desert Shield and Desert Storm Memorial construction location is behind me. A lot of the Gulf War veterans came here after the parade. About 70 of them read some of the names of their fallen comrades. It was clearly a highlight of the parade to see more than 100 of these Gulf War veterans from Desert Shield and Desert Storm in the parade. And as you know, you can see behind me, this memorial to them will be opening up later this year. Another highlight was clearly seeing the World War II veterans. There were about 15 to 20 of them at the parade this year. They were in classic cars. And I spoke with Tim Holbert, who was the guy who organized the parade. He said it was a really unique moment to see all of them together. Let's listen.
85 years since Pearl Harbor this year. Very rare history. Less than 1/2% of all World War II vets are still alive. To have that many with us, very, very special.
And you can see just over there, that is the Vietnam Memorial. We have seen a lot of the people who watched the parade earlier today. A steady stream of them have gone to that Vietnam Memorial and some of the other memorials here to pay their respects and to honor those who have given everything. I was talking to Wayne Jones. He lost his father in Vietnam. He was killed in action, and he says that he actually comes here from Georgia and he volunteers a few days out of the year in order to keep his father's memory alive. You've seen a lot of these today. These are hero bracelets or memorial bracelets. Mine is actually in honor of Christopher Horton. His widow, Jane Horton, gave that to me. He was killed in Paktia province in Afghanistan in 2010. And I wear it to remember his sacrifice and to honor him. And there's a moment here where in D.C., while everybody across the country today is having a good day off and a great holiday, here is where we remember and we pause to make sure that those who have given everything will not be forgotten. Back to you.
All right, Carla Babb, thank you. Meanwhile, as the war with Iran continues to rage, we honor the 13 U.S. troops who were killed in action. Of the 13 killed, 3 were women. They were Sergeant Ashley Pruitt, Major Ariana Savino, and Tech Sergeant First Class Nicole Amore. Former White House COVID response coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx joins me. Now, Dr. Birx is also a retired U.S. Army colonel. Dr. Birx, we thank you for your service to this country. And also, I'm enjoying taking an opportunity to share one of your other very important titles with our viewers here. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, particularly being a woman serving in the military. Tell us what that's like.
Well, Katrina, I am so grateful that you're covering this and recognizing women who have served in the military for a very long time and have also made the ultimate sacrifices, mothers, sisters, daughters. I got to serve next to many of them. I got to care for them at Walter Reed. It's really, I'm just thrilled that you're recognizing the contribution of women in the military and the sacrifices they have made.
Dr. Birx, a Washington Post article says that 2% of deaths in the Iraq or Afghanistan wars were women. Now, in the Iran war, women make up 12% of those wounded and 23% of deaths. Does that surprise you? And to what do you attribute that?
Well, more and more women are integrated into units that are serving very close to the front lines. Obviously, air support, helicopter support, frontline medical support. And so women, just like I love the American Revolution that PBS did, because they showed how much women were serving right at the front lines, never recognized, feeding the soldiers, caring for the soldiers. And our women in active duty are right there at the front line, often very close to combat. And that's where people make these ultimate sacrifices. And I'm just grateful for their service and grateful for their families who have mothers and daughters that are in long deployments.
And it has been a decade since the military opened all combat positions to women. You mentioned the front lines there. How do you think women are navigating these roles and challenges? Obviously, I think a very different type of skill set required than the men.
You know, when I had to take my PT test, I was right out there, right beside the men, doing my push-ups, sit-ups, and my 2-mile run. I think women understand that they have to maintain their fitness, and they do. I think they're very proud of their capacity, and I think they have served really with honor for many years. And I'm just thrilled that finally this Memorial Day we're recognizing the contribution of women's, and I hope more veterans organizations become also really focused on having programs for women who have served diligently through the years, but often have different needs when they return from combat than the men.
Very, very good point there. And Dr. Deborah Birx, very happy to have you on to talk about this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina.
And coming up, more than 1,000 people attended a funeral for a complete stranger. Why? The answer when the record continues.
Closed captioning by America Tax Group. Stop IRS and state collections. Free consultation. Call now.
America Tax Group is the nation's leading tax firm that has helped millions of taxpayers resolve penalties, remove liens, and stop wage garnishments. If you're dealing with IRS or state tax issues, don't wait. Call now.
Immuno 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
CVS doesn't want you to know about this new hack to get 9 tablets of 100 milligram generic Viagra for $7 in less than 2 minutes. When I first heard about it, I thought it has to be a scam. But after my failures in bed, I kept thinking, I need to fix this. I can't keep living like this and disappointing my wife. That's when I looked into Friday plans. CVS charged over $45 a pill. 9 tablets of 100 milligram generic Viagra set me back $406. Walgreens charged me $417 for the same 9 tablets, or $46 per pill. I was sick and tired of those insane prices. So, yeah, I gave Friday Plans a shot. They offer the same 9 tablets of 100 milligram generic Viagra for $7. The prescription is free and the shipping is free as well. Even the 20 milligram generic Cialis is the same price. I was skeptical, thinking, all right, where's the hidden charge? But there wasn't one. It all took me about 2 minutes. No phone calls, no doctor visits. It was all so easy. I just answered a few medical questions, and within hours, their doctor approved a free prescription, just like they promised. 3 days later, a discreet package landed at my door. 9 individually wrapped 100 milligram tablets of generic Viagra, all for $7. Holding it, I thought, wow, they really delivered on this. It's as simple as they claimed. You can claim this deal by scanning the QR code or going to realfridayplans.com. That night, I tried one. Within 30 minutes, I knew Friday Plans is the real thing. I feel 20 years younger. My wife won't stop smiling. She called me a whole new man. I've been seeing Friday Plans everywhere. It's going viral on Facebook and has a solid 4.7 stars on Trustpilot with impressive feedback. Don't miss out. Get your free prescription by scanning the QR code or going to realfridayplans.com. It takes 2 minutes, and it's going to be the best $7 you've ever spent. Try it out yourself while you still can. Scan the QR code or go to realfridayplans.com.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
The sale is on at urgentcarekit.com/America. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Immuno 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Right now, hundreds of U.S. servicemen and women are stationed on Guantanamo Bay. Over the weekend, one nonprofit organization sponsored a golf outing to give our brave soldiers a break this holiday weekend. Newsmax host John Bakken was there, and he has that story.
Well, hello from what is often referred to as the worst golf course in the world, the Lateral Hazard Golf Course here on Guantanamo Bay at the Naval Base. We have a golf tournament going on today. This is all part of our Memorial Day mission here to remember and honor the fallen troops, but also make sure that the men and women stationed here are having a good time this Memorial Day as well. And while the course is a little rough, these guys really enjoy getting out here to play. And the hope here is that we'll get the attention of someone, maybe President Trump or Secretary Hegseth, to really help them understand why this course needs a rehab. About 20 years ago, there was a mass influx of Haitian refugees that came here, and they were actually stationed. They made a refugee camp here, and ever since then, the golf course has been kind of in disrepair. But we had a chance to talk to some of the golfers out here today, two guys from the U.S. Army who are playing, and they talked to us about what it's like to play golf, not only here, but also this weekend. Here they are.
We're looking at the driving range. It's a little patchy, so yeah, we're going to play. Just like at home, though, there's some spots that are pretty rough that are cheap plays, so we have a good time with it still.
This is your first time playing the course?
First time, yeah, that's right.
And excited?
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, anytime you get to come out on a day like this and play some golf.
Well, last night we made sure they had a lot of fun. We Found the Blue organization had two country singers, Tommy Lynn and Jordan Oakes, playing. And we had another big barbecue for everyone. Also, Joe the Barber from Barber's Edge in Jupiter, Florida, he came along, brought his wife and another barber, and we're able to give about 50 haircuts last night, and they're going to be doing it again tonight. So here we are on Guantanamo Bay. Guys out here enjoying the golf course, and we're just going to try to get some attention to this and hopefully make this golf course a little bit better for them. Back to you.
All right, great story, John Bachman. Thank you so much. And now to a touching scene in Massachusetts. More than 1,000 people gathered at a funeral service for a man none of them knew. His name was John Bernard Arnold III. He was a Navy veteran of World War II. He died earlier this month at the age of 98, and he didn't have any known living relatives. So a veterans group organized a funeral and invited the public to come to pay their respects. And the public answered that call. An estimated 1,500 strangers attended the service. Police departments, fire departments, EMTs, veterans, and civilians all attended. Many even escorted his remains to his final resting place. Meanwhile, on Saturday, the National Park Service honored World War II veterans in Washington. A few of those brave men spoke to a crowd on that rainy day. One of the veterans, named David Yoho, is 97 years old. He gave an emotional speech honoring the soldiers lost during the war.
We were a country of 130 million, and we put 16,200,000 of them in uniform, and 440,000 of them didn't come home. And when you see a star representing 100 men, contemplate that each one of these people had an attachment to a mother, father, son, daughter, brother, sister. They are our family.
Wow, impressive. And we thank service members who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country today and always, as well as the brave men and women who continue to protect us every single day and bring us our freedom. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Katrina Szish, and for Greta Van Susteren. Ed Henry, The Big Take is next. Stay right here with Newsmax.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.